Hello. Hello. All right. I think I'm back. Apologies for that. I think my mic just died. So we'll just restart from the beginning. We are there. Hold on. All right. Let's start again. Okay, great. I hope you're seeing the main slide and not the notes part of it. So as I was talking about, we will talk a bit about what iPrint is, a brief introduction of it, a little bit about advanced authentication, and what do we have for iPrint and advanced authentication? Why is this combination important? So we will look at the integration part, like what do we have today. We will look at the devices support and the OS support, and have a small demo from Pritham Wagle. Post that, we will take a quick look at what we have planned for the for this integration in the near future. Okay, so I hope most of you are aware what iPrint is, but for those who are new to iPrint, well, iPrint is, for me, considered as the best platform agnostic enterprise print solution for customers who want a secure on-demand printing that works seamlessly with their existing and new fleet of printers. So basically, iPrint works with different LDAP directories. It makes printing easier in a heterogeneous environment where there are lots of different operating systems, there are lots of different mobile devices. It encourages the administrator to enable bring your own device philosophy with confidence, and it literally works with any network attached printer. And iPrint is also one of the few AirPrint certified server. So if you have AirPrint printers and you want to control all of the air printing, you can use iPrint to do that. So the iPrint is available in two formats. One is iPrint Appliance and the other one is iPrint for OES. So the iPrint for OES is basically the add-on ISO which runs on top of OES 2015 SP1 and OES 2018. But for the iPrint appliance side of things, these are the supported hypervisors: Zen, VMware, Windows Hyper-V, and Citrix Sun Server. So using iPrint, there is literally multiple ways to print. Uh, of course, all the major operating
Sorry,
systems
Punya.
and the.
If we're just seeing the content slide, or I'm not sure if they're advancing or not.
Lothar, it is advancing. I'm actually on the third slide. Are you able to hear my voice correct? Or is that also missing?
Voice is okay, just seeing content slide, if that's what you're on.
Okay. I have changed the slide from content to hypervisors. Let me know if you're still not seeing it.
I'm not, but maybe someone in the chat could respond with that if they can see something else.
Okay, I'm just so guys, if you're oh wow, okay, so people are seeing only the content slide. I think this is problem number 2. Let me reshare my screen again. Lota, let me know if you are seeing something else other than content slide.
That's better.
Okay, just hold on. Let me change the slide and confirm if you do see different slides.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
Good.
Wow, okay. Today is a good day. Okay. So this slide is basically the Micro Focus iPrint slide. And as I was talking about, supporting different workstations, different network attached printers, and the AirPrint server certification. So this is just a high level diagram of what iPrint is. And the next was about the hypervisors which iPrint appliance runs on. So these are the hypervisors which is supported with iPrint appliance. The next one which I was talking about is the multiple ways to print. And as I was talking earlier, that we have support for different operating systems and different mobile OS also. So iOS, Android. And on top of that, we have several new methods of printing, email to print, API-based printing, or literally you do not even require a client. You can simply open up your browser, drag a file to print. So browser-based printing. So literally there are several ways to print which iPrint provides. And with the mobile device coming into picture, of course, there is an entire IT service industry which brings in the mobile device management, where corporates take control over the own devices which their employees bring. So iPrint also supports several such MDMs. Okay. So I will be looking into the questions then when we change topics. All right, no questions. Okay, advanced authentication. Now, what is advanced authentication? So advanced authentication is a multi-factor authentication solution from Micro Focus that enables you to protect your sensitive data by providing multiple ways of authentication on top of your usual passphrase, which is your username password authentication. So when iPrint integrates with advanced authentication, it does so with the help of a hardware. This hardware is from RFIDs, and the name of this hardware is Ethernet 241. This hardware is capable of reading several different types of badge card IDs, which we then pair up with the second factor authentication to do the multi-factor authentication. So we'll take a look at what we can do today in a bit. So the authentication methods which is supported today with iPrint is card and smartphone. So this is the authentication method which is supplied by the advanced authentication framework, and we'll take a look into the detail in a bit. So why is printing and multi-factor important? Now, over the years, we have seen lots of industry changes, and there were lots of surveys going around from different analysts such as Gartner and Koserka. And what we have seen is the top 3 points, which is concerned with the security of printing. 60% of the consumers or the customers who were surveyed had suffered at least one data loss from the printing being unsecured. So it was either not authenticated, or they did not have best practices deployed in their printing environment. The next point is about the consumers, the percentage of consumers who are thinking, or rather who are evolving to include the printing security into their IT security measures. So 55% of these consumers are considering the print security to be very important, and 63% of these consumers include advanced or not include are looking for advanced print security during their GDPR measures. So more and more consumers are becoming security conscious towards the printing side of things. Now, earlier the security concerns were only limited to desktops, accessing files, creating files. So everything actually revolves around file. Now, how does a printer, which basically prints a paper, how does that become a security debate? So the content creation, basically file creation, file deletion, anything and everything to do with file was limited to a end user computing devices, laptops, desktop, mobile, and stuff. But today, with the onslaught of the multifunction printers, which provides several new functions such as scan to email, scan to copy, scan to a shared workflow. You can also pull data from a shared folder and get it printed. You can scan something to send it over an email. All of this has security problems because they all deal with the files. Now, from a compliance perspective, the IT practices of an organization is now being planned with these printers in perspective. Now, advanced security with regards to the printing environment is now being considered very seriously. So, what have we done here with the printing and the advanced authentication? So before we go into the detail of the advanced authentication, we will take a look at one of the features from printing which integrates with the advanced authentication, and that is the WalkUp printing. So what does WalkUp printing do? You can basically print from any device, and the print jobs would stay securely on the print server. You walk up to the device, use your mobile or use a browser to release your print jobs onto the printer. So unless until you manually trigger the release, your jobs do not pile out or do not get printed out on any printer. So we basically use the walk-up printing mechanism to implement the advanced authentication. So that's implemented on top of the walk-up printing. So with walk-up printing, we support the Ethernet 241 device from RFIDs. And what we have done next is we have integrated the second factor with this device. So this is basically a very high level diagram of how the RFID device and the badge works with the printer. So it's very simple. You have a RFID device connected to the printer, and the end user walks up and uses his badge ID to authenticate himself, and the jobs are pulled from the iPrint server to be printed. So then, as I was saying, that we have taken this 241 device from RFIDs and we have integrated the second factor on top of this device. So the method which is supported today is the RFIDs 241, and post the end user authenticates to this device, the NetIQ authentication app will require a yes or no from the end user for the printouts to come out. So that's the method which is supported today on iPrint appliance, and we are also looking to push this out for iPrint for OES. And this is again a very high level diagram of how the badge and the push notification works in tandem to do the two-factor authentication for the printout. So as you can see, the 241 is connected to the printer as usual. The user swipes his card badge on the 241, which talks to the iPrint appliance, which in turn talks to the advanced authentication server, and which pushes out a notification to the registered mobile for this particular user, so that it gets to know that this is the actual user who's trying to release the print jobs. And once the permission is given on the mobile device, the printouts takes place. So I will hand over to Preetham Wagle for a short demo. So while I transfer the screen share to Preetham Wagle, if there are questions, you can type it in the questions pane. So Preetham, I'm making you the presenter here.
Yeah, thanks, Punya. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Hello everyone. What I would like to go through is a quick demo of the advanced authentication feature. So I would like to go bit of configuration that is required in iPrint appliance and advanced authentication appliance, and then see how to enroll the user in advanced authentication server, and then see how the job flow and the release of the job works. So first, let us try what are the configurations that are required in the iPrint appliance. So I have opened the management console of iPrint appliance. So basically, as Punya pointed out, the WalkUp functionality in the iPrint appliance works using a virtual printer called a WalkUp printer. So in this particular appliance, I have configured a physical printer over here, SP, and then there is a WalkUp printer, which is a virtual printer called WalkUp. So for the WalkUp functionality to work, we'll have to create a WalkUp printer, and then the next configuration would be the user source 2.2. I have configured a eDirectory source over here. This is important because the same source has to be again synced on NetIQ Advanced Authentication Server as well. So if you see, or down in the same page, so there is an option over here, use card release for print job. So if you enable this checkbox, then iPrint appliance would not use NetIQ Advanced Authentication Framework, but then it would use the eDirectory source for validating the card details. For now, we will only look at advanced authentication, how that works. So there's a tab over here called Advanced Authentication, right below the directory server. If you tap that, you need to enable that advanced authentication. Once you enable around 5 fields over there, so these fields get once you configure certain things in the NetIQ Advanced Authentication appliance. So this is the management console of the NetIQ Advanced Authentication Framework server. So here we'll have to do certain configuration, which I'm going through quickly over here. So the first one is the repositories. This is nothing but, again, you configure the same eDirectory source over here, so that there is a mapping of users between Advanced Authentication Server and iPrint appliance. So basically, NetIQ Advanced Authentication Framework Server supports multiple authentication methods, which you can see over here. Right at present, iPrint appliance works with a couple of them. One is the LDAP part, one is the card-based authentication, and the smartphone, as Punya pointed out earlier. The next thing that we need to do is create a chain. So chain is nothing but binding two authentication methods together. So for example, if you want single factor, then chain would contain a single factor that is only card. But then if you want multi-factor support, then we would want to add a couple of authentication mechanisms to a single chain. So I'm just showing that over here. Just give a name to a chain. And this chain name is required to be configured in the appliance. So basically, we select the authentication methods that are part of this chain. And right now, these are the two methods that are supported by iPrint appliance. So we could just use card if single factor is sufficient. Else, we would add both card and smartphone in the same order. So the first authentication method is always card. So once chain is configured, we go to an event. So event is nothing but, for example, in iPrint appliance case, it is releasing WalkUp job. So it is a virtual entity that you can bind for authentication. So we just create an event here. And you need to associate the chain that we created earlier to this event. So once event is done, then we have to create an endpoint. So endpoint is a client that talks to NetIQ Advanced Authentication Server. In this particular case, the endpoint would be the iPrint appliance, which actually interacts with Advanced Authentication Server. So we create an endpoint. So once we create an endpoint, you would get an endpoint ID and endpoint secret. These details we need to copy back to the iPrint appliance advanced authentication page which will be required there to register this particular server. So if we go back to the page advanced authentication in iPrint appliance, so you basically provide the advanced authentication server address, the event that we had created, endpoint name, the endpoint ID, and the endpoint secret. So once this is configured, we are set from iPrint appliance configuration perspective. I'll just quickly run through how a user would enroll for card and smartphone authentication. So advanced authentication framework provides multiple ways to actually provision the user, enroll the user. So one of the ways is provisioning by the user himself. So basically, there's a user that I've created called iPrint user, logs into his account in advanced authentication server. So the enabled authenticators are shown here, card and smartphone. So basically, user has to tap on the card for enrolling card. To enroll card, he need to have a card reader attached to the computer that he logged in. So basically, it says waiting for card, and once user swipes the card on the device, it reads and it enrolls. Similarly, for smartphone, user need to have an iOS or an Android device, download this particular NetIQ authentication app, and you need to add an authenticator here. So basically, just tap on the plus button over there and scan the QR code that was shown in that particular enrollment screen. It just asks for account info. It is just for the reference, since he can add multiple accounts here, it will be just saved in the app locally. So once enrollment is done, we are set to go. So the next thing, we'll try to submit a print job over here. So I'm using the web upload functionality that has been recently added in iPrint appliance. So I've submitted the print job to the WalkUp printer that we created recently. This is the release portal where user can go and see or release the jobs that are held in the WalkUp printer. So I'm logging into the release portal. So the job is being seen in the release portal. And now what we try to do is, this is a setup that Punya was talking about. This is RFIDs Ethernet 241 device over here connected to the printer, and the card reader connected to the RFIDs 241 device. So we just swipe the card. So once the card is swiped, user would get a notification in his mobile app whether to accept the authentication or not. So basically, you get some notification of this sort. So you could accept or decline. If you decline, then the job wouldn't be released. Once the user accepts, the job would be released on that particular physical printer. So I just declined it. Similarly, you try swiping again. you would get one more notification. Yeah. So user has to accept it, and then the job would be released in the print. Yeah, that's all I had. Any question?
So thanks, Pritham. Thanks for taking us through that nice demo. So if there are questions, you can type in, or we can go over it at the end of the presentation. Okay. All right. So continuing from the demo, let's take a look at what we have planned next for the multi-factor authentication. So whatever we have discussed so far was talking about a hardware device which essentially reads the badge and then triggers the second factor. We are planning to include several new methods for the second factor authentication, Bluetooth, fingerprinting, and OTP. You can define the second factor based on what printer a user is trying to print, or based on what time of the day somebody is trying to print. So there are several possibilities which can be defined with the second factor authentication coming into play. Now, all of this is deployable on top of a non-multifunctional printer, which is a regular printer. But then when we talk about multifunctional printers, we can take things up by several notch. So there are several new use cases for the advanced authentication with multi-factor printers. We can use the second factor for the separate functions such as scanning. We can use second factor for accessing shared folders and stuff. So currently we are working with one of the vendors, and we are looking at the possibilities which we can provide to the end users with the advanced authentication. So what we are looking at here is the console of a printer, and you can see there are two applications, Sharp Print Badge and Micro Focus iPrint. So once you click on iPrint, you're taken onto a login page, where you can also swipe the badge, and post swiping the badge, the second factor authentication can also be implemented here based on what the administrator chooses to. So once the end user is authenticated, they can look at several new functions within the iPrint app. For example, release jobs, scan to copy, scan to shared folder, print from file of sale. So if you take a look at this, you are looking at two functions. The first two functions, which is release jobs and scan to copy, this does not require further authentication. This doesn't require a second factor here. But we can choose to implement the second factor for accessing the advanced methods for printing. If you want to scan your documents to a shared folder, you would need to use a second factor there. Or if you want to print from a shared folder, in this example, we have used Filer. So if you want to use Filer shares, the administrator can choose to implement the second factor authentication on top of this function. So what we are looking here is a very different experience what we can provide on top of a multifunction printer. The combination of print and advanced authentication. There can be second factor implementation as and how the admin chooses to. Of course, if you choose the release jobs, you would not require a second factor. You would simply look at the jobs and you can release the jobs on the printer. So the possibilities are immense with the advanced authentication and print going hand in hand with on top of the multifunction printer console. And we hope that we will be able to give these features to you as soon as possible. So now we will look at the questions which we have in chat. Or if you have questions, you can raise your hand and I will unmute the particular attendee. All right, I see a hand from Gonzalo. Gonzalo, I have unmuted you. Please go ahead with the question. Gonzalo, if you're speaking, you're on. Maybe you're on mute.
No, I didn't do anything.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand, so I unmuted you. Okay.
Oh, sorry. That was accidentally.
Okay, no problem. All right, so I think we have a bit of time, so I'll go around the room and check if there are questions. So I'll start with Andreas. Andreas, do you have any questions or comments on this?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you. The next is Balads. Okay, so no comment from Balads. Next one is Dimitri.
No questions, thank you.
All right, thank you. Skipping Gonzalo, I'll go to Joe. Hey Joe, do you have any questions for us? Right. Okay, no questions from Joe. Thank you, Joe. Kyle, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Hi, Michael. Do you have any questions for me? All right. No questions from Michael. Paulo Sosa, do you have any questions for us? All no questions from Polo. The last one is Tom, if you have any questions for us.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So thanks to all of you guys for making time to join this, and I hope you like the webinar, and have a look at the video once this ends. Thank you, and have a good day.